Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a check register and also incorporate a pivot table and use the pivot table features to do some analysis. So a check register, you may be familiar with a physical check register, something that you get from the bank when you open up a checking account, and you have your debit in one column and your credit in one column, and then you bring over a balance, basically subtracting the debits and adding the credits. Now you also in some check registers you also have a reconcile column where you can reconcile with the bank, maybe a statement that you receive in the mail, or you're looking online to see if that credit or debit got matched up to the bank. So let me show you how to create a check register and also show you in this particular example how we incorporate the table features within the check register, and then I'll go ahead and turn it into a pivot table where you can do some analysis. So let's say, for example, we have our debits and credit. These are some items here, for example, and we go ahead and just take. I'm just go ahead and just take the columns A to E. Select that, Control C to copy, and then go to the next tab, and I'll just go ahead and just paste values. The reason why I'm going just pasting the values right now is I want to show you how to turn on the table feature and some of the useful things that we have within the table feature. So this is actually just a range of cells here. So we have our range here. And what I can do is I can select my range, and after my range of data selected, I can go under the Insert tab and select the table command. And what you notice too is if I can click on the table command, or I can just press Control T, and that will turn this range of data into a table. So I'm going to keep this check mark right here that says my table as headers, because I'm going to keep these as headers. Go ahead and click OK. And the first thing you'll notice is it changed color. And basically, depending on your default, you'll probably change the colors of blue and white, or the darker shade of blue for the headers, and just a lighter shade of blue and alternating shades of white for the different rows. Now, the reason why we change it into a table is because later on, when we go ahead and put this into use a pivot table, it makes updating the pivot table so much more easier. So let me go ahead and do some formatting here. You notice that the date has turned into a serial number, and that's the way that Excel sees dates, as serial numbers. So basically, the first date that Excel starts off in is January 1st, 1900, and that starts off with the serial number 1. And then serial number 2 would be January 2nd. So this particular date, 42005, let me go ahead and just select this column, and let me go ahead and go under Home and turn these into a date. And so basically, that first cell, A2, 42005, that equals the date of 1/1/2015. So just to let you know, that's how Excel sees dates, as serial numbers. And basically, the format that we're familiar with dates is just the way that it's displayed. So once that's set, I'll go ahead and enter a balance column here. So what you notice that within the table feature, there's a lot of things that are kind of dynamic. So if I type in balance and then press enter, you'll notice that this particular column becomes part of the table now. It's going to get the same formatting as the other columns. Let me go ahead and press enter, and you notice that that has happened. And so basically, it has turned that particular column and added it in as part of the table. Now the nice thing about the table is a lot of things become dynamic or automatic. When you enter a cell here adjacent to the table that wasn't part of the table originally, it becomes part of the table. So let me go ahead and create the formula for this particular column here to get our running total and the balance here. I'm going to leave this first cell blank here because I want to show you an example of what the table feature does by copying or automatically updating each cells with the formula. So let's say, for example, we have this the above balance, the previous balance of that, and what I want to do is I want to minus the debits and then add the credits. So basically, when you're balancing your checkbook, you have your balance and you minus what you took out and then add what you deposited, right? So if I press enter, what it's going to do is it's going to copy that particular formula all the way down. It's going to copy it down in reference to the cells. It's going to change the cell references. F2 becomes F3, D3 becomes D4, E3 becomes E4 in the next cell here, and so on and so on. So if I press enter, you'll notice that all the cells get populated now. They don't get populated correctly because they're basing the initial value on this balance here. So if I put, and this balance actually copied the formula too, but let me go ahead and remove that formula, and let's make our initial deposit 1,000. Right? And then now the formula calculates kind of correctly, because right now we have a value here for F2. And so as I mentioned before, in the next cell becomes F3 minus D4 minus E4. So if I go down here, you'll see that it's done that. And that's because it's a relative cell reference. And when you move it or you copy it down to different cells, it's the cells change, because it's going to change relative to where it was at before. So this is my balance here, and that's an example of how a table is dynamic in nature. Now another example is, let's say I add a row here. I go 6, 3, and then 2015, tab, and you'll notice that the colors change too. So once I press enter or tab, it's executed that particular function to put that date in, and it's also included that row as part of the table. So let me just go ahead and put deposit here. And what you notice too, it's also created that function there, or it's copied that formula down from above. So if I press, if I go to the next cell, and maybe this one didn't reconcile, this was a deposit, so maybe I deposit $100 here, you'll notice that the formula changes here right now. So the nice thing about tables is it automatically adjusts its size based on what you add or move from it, and formulas that you put into it, they automatically update accordingly. So that's the nice thing about it. So now you can actually use this particular table feature as your check register. So if you wanted to do online and kind of reconcile with your bank, instead of putting it into your checkbook and write it out, maybe at the end of the month you have all your debits and credits, and you want to have it done automatically, you can start entering it all here in a form, and you can check it on a electronic format. Now, there's some things that you might want to do. You may not want it to sort from the oldest to the newest. Maybe you want to sort it from the newest to the oldest. And I'll show you, if you do it like this and then you've got a formula in play, there might be some things or unintended consequences of that. So let's go from newest to oldest. I want to have the newest on top. And you notice now it's messed up the formula, because basically the formula is looking for something above it and then minusing that plus that. But we've moved it down below. Let's go ahead and press Control Z to undo that. Now, because of that, there's other ways to get around that, but I would like to use the pivot table feature with this table to show you how you can do that. You can sort ascending and descending without messing up the balance. And also there's some other analysis features that you can use in the pivot table to make some analysis on maybe your daily budget, or your monthly budget much better. So we've noticed that we still have our table. You notice that when I click in the table, we have this Table Tools context menu. If you click outside of it, it disappears. So let me go ahead and click inside of it, and you see that we have, when we click on Design, it shows you some additional commands that you can do. So one of the things that we can do is turn this table into a pivot table, source the data here and turn it into a pivot table. And then you can just go into Tools here, and you go under Summarize a Pivot Table, click on that. It's going to ask you where you want to create your pivot table. You'll notice that it says Table Range. It says Table 2. And that's because when you turn a range of cells in a table, it gives a name. If you notice up here under Properties, the table name is Table 2. So that's just one of the default names that Excel will give your table. If you created multiple tables, they'll increment in number. If I created another table somewhere else, it would be Table 3 and Table 4, etc. So we're going to use this Table 2 as the source for our pivot table. And I'm going to put it into a new worksheet. So once I click OK, it's going to put the pivot table in a new worksheet. And what I'm going to do is, basically, I'm just going to follow the columns. I'm just going to put date, description, reconcile, debit, credit, balance, all in order. And I'm going to put it into the rows area. So I'm going to go ahead and put date here. Let me go and drag the description. Let me go ahead and drag the reconcile field in there. And then let me go ahead and drag the debit field. Right after reconcile, again, credit. You'll notice that when you drag it, you can see that little green marker there. It shows where it's going to be placed. So if I kind of moved it around, you can see that that green marker shows you where it's going to be placed. So let me go all the way to the bottom and put it there. And you'll notice it doesn't look right somehow. You notice that it doesn't really look like the table that we have here, and that's because we have to do some additional adjustments. Let me go back into sheet 1 here, and what I need to do is, with the pivot table selected, you'll notice that we have these this context menu, context tab here. Let me go under the design, and what I want to do is for the layout, the report layout, I want to show it in tabular form. I want to show it in table form. So I want to do some additional adjustments. You'll notice that in some of the rows they have totals, and what happens is when you create a pivot table, what Excel does is it sees some numeric values there and it subtotals it. So I don't want to have those subtotals there. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and uncheck that subtotal for the credit. Do the same here for the debit. Select that and uncheck that. Right click, select that, right click, and remove that, and then click over here where it says initial deposit total. We have that total there. Right click and go and select deselect the subtotal. And I'm going to do the same here for now. I might bring this one back, but I'm going to remove that for now. Let me go ahead and remove the subtotal for the date. Now with this pivot table, we want to make it look as plain as possible. We want to make it look not like a pivot table, more like just any regular old table. And what we can do is get rid of a couple of things. We can get rid of these expanders. And so if we click on the pivot table, we'll go under Analyze. We can go under into our options here. Go ahead and click the drop down and go under Options. So to get rid of these icons where we can collapse or expand the fields, I can just go under Display and uncheck this box. So I want to uncheck where it says Show Expand Collapse button. So once I check that and click OK, you notice now it disappears. The other thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these this text that says blank. And so the reason why that's happening, of course, if you go back into the Register tab here, we have blanks here. And when this table is sourced into the pivot table, it will take those blanks and correspondingly just put the blank text there. Now, if we don't want that there, we just want it to really just be a blank, what we need to do is we need to do some conditional formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the whole sheet here. I'm going to go ahead and just select, click on this particular triangle here. You'll select the whole sheet here. And what I want to do is I want to perform some conditional formatting. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And I want to do a new rule. So what I want to do is I want to use this particular option here, format only cells that contain, and then under format cells, only cells with, I'm going to have the specific text. And that specific text is going to be this blank. So any cell that contains blank, so I have to put the whole word in, or the whole content of that in there. It's going to be the parentheses blank, and then close parentheses. Once that is there, once it finds something that says a cell that says blank, we want to format it. So I'm going to click the format button. It's going to bring up the format cells. And what I want to do is I want to create a custom format. So I want to click on that. And the format I want to do, this cell is editable here. So what I want to do is I just want to put 3 semicolons. No spaces, just put 3 semicolons. And what it's going to do is once it sees that blank, it's just going to wipe it out. It's just not going to be there. It'll just put a blank space there in essence. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and once that's done, you'll notice that it's gone. So if I type blank here, let me go ahead and just type blank here, B-L-A-N-K, and close parentheses, you'll notice now it's disappeared. But it's still there. Excel really still has it in memory, but the display of it is not there anymore. So I'm going to delete that. So that's in essence what you're doing with that particular conditional formatting. So I did it for the whole worksheet here. So now that's gone, and what I can do here now is I can just edit my table a little bit more. Let me go ahead and select the columns here, double click it to auto fit. Now I'll show you the example where you can actually sort here, and it's not going to mess up the data. So previously we had shown an example where we sorted the date here from newest to oldest, and it messed up the balance here. But if we did that same here, if we wanted date and we sorted from newest to oldest, you'll notice that it did not mess up the balance, because basically it's just taking this number from that particular cell here, and it's not copying the formula per se, it's taking the output of that formula. And so that's why I didn't do that. Now that's the nice thing of having the pivot table is you can do a lot of different analysis. You can sort it, you can bring things over there differently. Now let me go ahead and redo this, unchange that, and sort from oldest to newest. And another thing that we can do if we want to do some analysis on this particular, maybe this is the budget for the household, we can go ahead and group data. And so we want everything for January and February to be as a group. So what I can do is you can select here, right click, and go under group, and maybe we'll group by months. So I'll go ahead, and months is already selected, and so I can click OK. And now you notice that it's kind of grouped everything by months. We're not concerned with the specific date. We want to start to do some analysis and look at months. So if we want to do some further analysis, what we can do is we can start to move some of the fields aside and keep others. So let's say, for example, we wanted to know our rent. What percentage of our budget is our rent? So let's go ahead and move some things out. Let's go ahead and move the reconcile out. You can either move it out by just clicking on that and kind of moving it up, or you can just uncheck that and uncheck that. Maybe I'm just concerned with the debits, and I want to find out what is the percentage. Let me go ahead and just revert this back into the days. Let me go and right click and go to ungroup and just revert that back to days, so I have my rent there. So let me go ahead and actually I'm going to adjust some things. I'm going to move my date after the description, because I want to have the description come first. Whoops. Let me go ahead and remove that again. So click down here and just have my green bar just go in between description and debit. So I've moved it over here. So now we have our rent occur a couple times here. We have our $500. And what I want to do here is, maybe I want to subtotal it too. Let me just go ahead and add that subtotal back in. Let me go ahead and right click and subtotal the description. So basically, let me go ahead and double click that to auto fit. Okay, let me see. Does our subtotal show up? No, it doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't show up because the calculations of totals and subtotals occur in the values. So I need to move this debit over into the values. Let me go ahead and just move that over here. And then I don't want to do a count. I want to do sum or average. Basically, it's only one instance of each. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and summarize the values by sum. So basically, it'll bring that back. And so that's now when I get the subtotal of the different rents. So it's gonna, once I put it into the values instead of having it in the rows, I just have to see the values not as a count but as a sum. So what I can do here now is I can actually add another one. If I wanted to see a percentage of the total, let me go ahead and show you another example where you can do some analysis. Let me go ahead and move the debit in here. And you notice that it looks like it's the same. It made a copy of it. And as before, we had to count a debit. So I want to go ahead and change that and also have that as a sum, but also want to show the values as something else. So what I want to do also is I might want to have it show as a percentage of the row total. So let me go ahead and go into right click, go into show values as, and we have percentage of the parent row total. So basically what it's done now is this 1233 is 100% of that. But if we go under rent here, we'll show that we have 5 instances of rent. Now each one is 20% of that. And then our rent, this particular value, is a percentage of the total of the book, the CVS, the rent, the Walmart. So that's a total of 100% of our debits. So here we can show some percentages of where our expenses are going. Now what I can do here, maybe I just don't want to show the date here. I just want to kind of show in total. I know it's going to be for the 6 months. Let me just go ahead and move the date out. And then I can see now that the total of all my expenses are here, and rent is 63% of my expenses. We have a total expenses of $3,900, and that's 100%. Rent is the biggest by far, maybe, and then followed by tuition. We have our $1,200 here. So that's another way that you can use the pivot table to do analysis of your budget. Now, pivot tables in themselves, you can probably write a whole book out of it. I just showed you a glimpse of what you can do with pivot tables. There's a lot more you can do with it. But for a simple application of a checkbook where maybe we just want to go ahead and enter in our debits and credits and then do some sorting and maybe look at percentages of our expenses, it can just do that for us pretty nicely. And you can probably do some additional analysis, but that's way beyond what this video is talking about. So I hope the brief features that I showed with the table feature and the pivot table is enough to whet your appetite to kind of go and look more for how you can use pivot tables. So for this example, sorting and maybe moving some of the fields around and looking at a percentage of total is probably enough for you to use in a checkbook register application. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.